What's going on, guys? Today we're going to look at a game between Byrne and Fischer. Fischer is just an absolute monster in this game. You're going to see the power of the knights, and let's just get to it. We have in the game d4, knight to f6, c4, and Fischer goes for g6. Of course, he wants to play his Grunfeld. He is planning to go d5 on the next move, and here Byrne decides to play g3. This is the fianchetto variation of the against the Grunfeld defense. Here Fischer, instead of playing the typical bishop g7 or even d5 right away, he goes for c6. He wants to when he plays d5, he wants to be able, after white captures, he wants to capture on d5 with the pawn. So that's what he's going for. After bishop to g2, Fischer goes for d5. We have c takes d5, c takes d5, and knight to c3 by Byrne. He's already putting a lot of pressure on this pawn, but at the moment he cannot take it. So Fischer takes this opportunity and he goes bishop to g7. Byrne goes pawn to e3. Fischer castles, and here knight g to e2. And this is one of the moments that we're going to stop and analyze why knight g to e2 and not knight to f3. Well, let's first look at knight to f3. If you go here, then Fischer is going to be able to solve the problem of his light square bishop. He's going to be able to play moves like bishop to g4, and if you ever play h3, he's simply going to just capture on f3 and trade his light square bishop for your knight. Now, if we go back to the move that was played, if you go here, knight g to e2, now bishop to g4 doesn't quite work the same because you can actually play this move. And yes, we're weakening our king. It looks like we shouldn't play this move, but where is this bishop going to go? h5 is not a move that you want to play. I mean, we go g4, we win the bishop. And if you go to either f5 or, I mean, e6 is just an ugly move. If you go here, then you can never push this pawn forward. But let's say you go to here to f5. Well, then we're going to be able to strike in the center at some point later in the game with the move to e4. And we're going to have two very nice pawns, full control of the center. So you don't want to do this. So for this reason, knight g to e2 is such a clever move. You are not able to now play this move, bishop to g4. And again, black has to find a move for his pieces. So he goes knight to c6. He wants to see what white is also going to do. And after this move, Byrne goes ahead and he castles. Again, if bishop to g4 comes now, we're going to follow this up with f3 and in the future, some e4 move, opening up the position. So here, it's another interesting moment. You cannot put this bishop on g4. So what are we going to do with this bishop? How are we going to develop? How can we manage to maybe trade this bishop for this knight? So Fischer finds a very beautiful move. He goes for b6. And this is very thematic in this style of positions. Byrne follows up this b6 with a similar move. He plays b3. He also needs to figure out a way to develop this bishop. Notice that it's behind the pawn structure. So he needs to do something. So he wants to either develop it to b2 or to a3. Here, after b3, Fischer follows that up with bishop to a6. And Byrne does the same thing with bishop to a3. And here, both players are practically developed, but Fischer, like the player that he was, he wants to win. He wants to open up the position, and he goes for rook to e8. The idea is very straightforward. He wants to go pawn to e5 and just break everything open. It looks very risky because if you go pawn to e5 after pawn takes, this pawn here on d5 is going to be very weak and it's going to come under attack by a lot of pieces. Notice that it's already being targeted by both the knight and the bishop, and if this pawn takes on e5, the queen can join in the attack. But Fischer, he has everything under control. He has calculated exactly what he wants to do. So after rook to e8, Byrne goes for queen to d2. He is not afraid of this pawn to e5 move because he knows that he's going to have a lot of pressure on this pawn. But Fischer goes for it anyway. He plays pawn to e5, pawn takes, knight takes on e5, and here Byrne played this move, rook f to d1, putting maximum pressure on this pawn. But this is the case of the wrong rook. And a lot of analysis has gone into this game as to why this other rook needed to come here, and I'm going to show a quick line. But the idea is that this rook needed to stay here defending the f2 pawn. As you will see, this is one of the main attacking trumps that black is going to have in this game, is attacking this pawn here. So another move that could have been tried here, and you might be thinking, hey, why can't we take this pawn on d5? Well, if you do that, you actually lose a piece, because don't forget that this bishop is attacking the knight on e2. So after knight takes, bishop takes on e2, and after queen takes, the queen takes on d5, and if you count the pieces, black is up a piece. So after rook f to d1, not forget the other rook needed to come to d1 for the reason that I mentioned. This rook needed to keep an eye on this pawn on f2. But after rook f to d1, putting maximum pressure on this pawn, Fischer found a beautiful move. This move serves so many purposes. He played knight to d3. The main point at the moment of this move is not only that we are attacking the pawn on f2, but look at something very beautiful. This knight gets in the way of both the queen and the rook. So now they're no longer attacking the pawn on d5. Another thing this knight is doing well, if this bishop ever comes to b2, we're going to have the option of capturing it. And also it prevents this rook from coming to the c file. So it's a beautiful knight just controlling everything in this game. Here, Byrne goes for queen to c2, missing Fischer's entire idea. Or maybe he did see it, but he wasn't able to understand all the complications behind it. Fischer played knight takes on f2, sacrificing the knight. It's not a true sacrifice because even in the end, he can at least get the exchange and 2 pawns forward, but he has seen a lot deeper than that. After king takes on f2, Fischer, of course, played knight to g4, and after king to g1, he took on e3, attacking the queen, attacking the rook, and attacking the bishop. So Byrne needs to do something. He needs to protect this queen. So what does he do? Well, he plays queen to d2 here. And Fischer, instead of capturing this rook, he played something absolutely astonishing and beautiful. He went knight takes on g2. And the idea is very simple. This bishop, the fianchetto bishop, does such a great job at protecting the king that Fischer said, you know what, material is not enough. I just want to remove the only piece that's defending your king, and now there's going to be nothing around it. It's going to be a naked king. And once I open up the position, my 2 bishops are going to deliver the final blow. And that's exactly what happens in this game. After king takes on g2, Fischer played this move d4. And this pawn cannot be allowed to stay there. For starters, I am threatening to take your knight on c3. And if this knight moves, let's say it goes back to b1 or to a4, let's just make a move. Let's not forget that there are 2 pieces attacking my knight on e2. It's going to be game over. So for this reason, this pawn could not be allowed to stay there. And Byrne simply took it. I mean, at first sight, it doesn't look like there's anything wrong with it. This bishop cannot just take right away because we have queen takes. So it doesn't quite work. But Fischer found this move, bishop to b7 check, and here king to f1 as the most combative move in the position. You could have tried to go for king to g1, but this runs into a very beautiful idea after bishop takes on d4, queen takes on d4, and then you have this move rook to e1 check, and after the king comes to f2, you have queen takes on d4, rook takes on d4, and then we're able to take on a1. We're going to be up an exchange. This should have been a very easy conversion by Fischer. Another move you could have tried instead of king to f1 was to go for king to f2 after this bishop check. But this doesn't work either. This runs into another beautiful idea. After queen to d7, rook a to c1, we play queen to h3. Now we're getting ready to enter via g2 or even taking the pawn on h2. So here we go knight to f3. We block the bishop and also we protect the h2 pawn with the knight. So a beautiful move here. But after bishop to h6 in this position, attacking the queen comes to d3, sorry. You go bishop to e3, queen takes, rook takes. And after king takes, you go rook to e8, the king comes to f2, and after queen to f5, there's nothing you can do about losing this knight, and this game would finish very quickly after that. So king to f1 is the best move to at least keep the game going and make Fischer find, obviously, the move that he found in the game, which was queen to d7. Now, the idea is very simple. We want to go queen to h3, get in and deliver all kinds of mates. And in this position, Byrne decided to resign, and he didn't give Fischer the opportunity to show the beautiful line I'm about to show you. Fischer was very upset at the end of the game because he felt that with such a beautiful masterclass of a game, he should have at least been given the chance to make a few other moves and show his combination. Here, the game would have continued. Queen to f2, queen to h3 check. The king comes to g1, and in this position is where you have the masterful blow. We have rook to e1 check, and this is one of those deflecting ideas that you want to keep in the back of your head for any future games that you guys play. You have to take either, if you take with the queen, well, this ends in checkmate on g2, so you cannot do that. So you have to take with the rook. And when you do this, well, then now this bishop is also going to deflect this queen. It's pinned, so you have to do something. If you put the rook on e3, well, I'm just going to take it. And after queen takes, I'm going to give you a checkmate on g2. That's all I have for you guys today. Have a wonderful day.